Hi, my name is Amy and I work at EriksensGlobal as a director and investment consultant. And this is my colleague Adam Muir, who works as an investment analyst with us. And we wanted to talk to you today about some of the interesting things we've been seeing in the markets. Part of that is what we've seen in certain big indices like the Russell 2000, which is in bear territory at the time of filming. We've also seen the S&P 500 have a wild rise that we hadn't seen since 2008. This was last week, but still be entering bear market territory. So we're wondering, and you might be wondering too, why is this volatility going on and what caused it? So obviously tariffs, spoiler, but tell us more about how the tariffs were calculated, what the background is behind it.
Thanks, Amy. So I suppose the biggest piece of background for the tariffs is that earlier this year we saw both Canada and Mexico subject to 25% tariffs. That alone was already a shock for equity markets and a contributor to volatility.
Yeah, to have their closest neighbours tariffed that high, kind of out of the blue.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And more recently, the even more out of the blue thing has been 10% baseline tariffs on economies around the world, as well as reciprocal tariffs against major US trading partners like China, the EU, Brazil, Vietnam, and many, many others.
Now, Trump announced Liberation Day, so we all kind of knew something was happening and we knew that there would be tariffs, but what was the calculation behind them? Because it wasn't exactly priced in to the extent that they came on. What did he mean by reciprocal tariffs? Because I think the market was expecting something, and then what happened?
That's a good question. So reciprocal tariffs are something which we were led to believe would be based on the actual barriers to trade or the actual tariffs that are currently levied against US goods imported into other countries. But when we actually saw the numbers, and when we actually saw the calculation, we saw that instead it's just based on the US trade deficit with respective countries.
Yeah.
And so the expectation for tariffs was pretty misaligned with the actual way they were calculated. And this is one of the reasons why we saw some really high tariffs on relatively small countries that the US has relatively little trade with.
Now, we're a relatively small country. We got a 10% tariff. What is this going to mean for us?
So I think for New Zealand, it's a complicated question. Part of that is the fact that we're a highly developed trading nation, and also we trade heavily with both the US and China.
Yes, especially in tourism, which is obviously a key focus for a lot of industries in New Zealand.
Spot on. So the biggest risk that we face is not necessarily just the 10% tariff already being levied against our exports, but actually it's the risk of falling exports or falling visitor numbers as a result of what tariffs can do overseas. So if we look at the US and China, in recent weeks we've seen major investment banks pull back and adjust forecasts for growth. One investment bank's expecting a 45% chance of a recession in the US. Another has trimmed off 0.8% from China's growth forecast.
Yes, I saw.
Now, the consequence of that is a potentially weakening and worsening consumer environment. And if consumers in the US, consumers in China find themselves with less discretionary income to spend, or experience some level of transitory inflation as a result of the price increases that tariffs are likely to cause, that might mean seeing lower exports to China and the US and lower visitor numbers. And with China and the US making up around about 40% of our exports last year and nearly 19% of visitor numbers, it's not insignificant.
Yeah. Now we know that China is talking about stimulus, but if you want to read more or learn more about what's going on in the economy, we release an economic commentary once a month, and it is such a good read. And for any other information, you can give us a call or go to our website, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye.
See ya.